Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the History Made Awesome podcast. This is episode 8, and we're back again with Ben. Ben, say hello to the world.
Hello, world.
So, before we start, get into the news and all that good stuff, Ben, how has your week off been? How's everything going?
Everything's going okay. School's starting to ramp up a little bit in this next week.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, everything's good. I have an interview to start working in a lab on Monday.
Ooh, awesome. So wait, have you finished your midterms, or are you about to go into midterms right now?
I had 2 last week. I have 1 tomorrow, and then I have 1 next week.
Mm-hmm. For
So they're
myself,
pretty
yeah.
scattered.
Yeah, that's good. For myself, I kind of went through my midterm week because I had a paper. I had 2 papers due on Monday. One of them was a 5-page, and one of them was like a like a 1.5 pager. But at this level, you have to be. They still have to be high quality work. You can't just turn things in and hopefully get a good grade. So that was fun trying to balance that with trying to read for research. I did not get very big chance to do that over the weekend. And then I have a seminar class, which for the seminar class, it's following about 17th century. I think it's like Europe, but it's really focused in Spain because that's where she kind of focuses in. So identity and how do you identify people and like the different things that kind of go on with that type of thing, like social um, things like that, like witchcraft and like poverty and rogues or like crime. For that class, it was kind of interesting because like I was given like the text that I got. I could probably put it on the when I edit this video. But like the text I was given, it was like in regular English because this was printed like in the 1608, so 17th century, early 17th century. But the text itself was very poor quality, which made it extremely hard to read. So it took me a lot longer to actually produce the paper. It was more like analysis, basically like what is the text talking about, what answers does it give you, what questions do you have for it, and go in depth into the under the surface and kind of pick out what you can get from it. And so it was actually kind of challenging because I had to deal with those things, but I prioritized and grinded and got it. So hopefully I get good grades on those things, but yeah, I think I have one more essay. Not really an essay. It's more like a what's it called? An abstract. So it's like a basically like
Mm.
an overall idea of what your paper's gonna be about. I'm probably have to go to her office hours for that class. It's a graduate student who's teaching that. She's actually pretty cool for anthropology religion. Um, because I have no idea kind of like what's going on. I'm kind of like in like with myself because I'm doing about 17 years right now with research. I'm kind of like one thing at a time. Like I focus on one thing and I move on to the next thing. And it's kind of hard for me to kind of plan for the future. So I really had to get down on that. So I'm not like struggling at the last minute trying to get something done, which I did last time. Which it actually went okay last time, but I don't want to do it again if I don't have to. And just kind of get some good workout early. But yeah, so I'm this is my last year here, and I've definitely got a hand of how to do things. I think one of the things I really did learn very well and is kind of use the professors as much as possible. Like they're your best friends, if anything, because they'll actually like help you out with. And I think I'm not saying with every professor, but I think at these universities, at these institutions, they're pretty much the best at what they do, and they really really want to help students succeed. But you have to really put the work in to succeed. Like for today, for example, for that seminar class, we have to do like an annotated bibliography. Um, for anyone who doesn't know what annotated bibliography is, basically it's like you find your sources, and basically for each source that you have, either be a book or an article, you write kind of like what's the basic idea of the article and then or the book, and then like what's the summation of it, or no, what's the summation, but like how can it help you with your research. So that's kind of what I have to do, like five sources. So I was kind of looking for sources, and I really didn't know like what other sources I should use. So it's funny because I was in the library. I was like, okay, I checked her office hours. It had like her office hours ended like at 12 today. This is Wednesday, and like so it was like 11:40. No, it was like 11:45 when I checked. I was like, I don't know, should I? I'm just like, you know what? I'm gonna try to get if try to get as much help as I can get. So I literally sprinted from I sprinted from the library to the social science building, which is locally known as the Death Star. in under 8 minutes. So that's a new record for me. No, it was good. I got the help I wanted, and I mean, yeah. So for anybody out there, like, just use them. Like, it might seem weird at first, but like, those people want to help you. So that's the one thing I kind of did today, and so no, I'm getting very used to it. It's now for me right now. It's kind of like I feel like I'm at the point where like I don't know if I actually put enough work in or if I do more work than I should. You know what I'm saying? Like
Hmm.
I'm like at that point where it's just like, okay, could I have worked? Could I have done more work or read more books or anything like that? So right myself, I'm trying to push myself as much as I can to try to get as much as I can done. So I'm always like in that state of like, okay, how much time should I allocate for that or anything like that. So it's kind of interesting how I'm doing that. So that was kind of my thing I learned last week is maybe I should put a little bit more work in and yeah. And Halloween. Oh, I guess we can talk about this at the end. But yeah, that's kind of like how it was going on with me. For now. So I think we should probably just jump into the news segment of the podcast, which everyone loves.
Where
Um,
do you want to start?
I guess we can start with something like more important, more recently. So as everyone should know, yesterday, I don't know what local time was in New York, I think it was Manhattan. I don't know what lower or upper.
Lower.
But it was lower Manhattan. Okay. So basically, a man in a truck, I think it was like right when school got out, he was driving a truck and he went into the bicycle lane and tried to run over a bunch of people and also had handguns with him and would shoot out of his car. And then he was end up being shot by police. He was not killed. He was wounded. He ended up
Mm.
killing 8 people. I believe like four of them were Argentinians. Two were
Yeah, surprisingly
yeah,
large amount of people were from Argentina.
yeah, and then I think two were from like Belgium, and then I think two were Americans. I think,
Mm.
if my math's correct, I think that's what it is. So that was like the first major terrorist attack in New York City since 9/11. Um, and yeah, there's just a couple things on that. So there's two kind of like results of that. One of them being is that supposedly I don't know who the current mayor of New York is. It De Blasio, I think.
Yeah.
He he praised the fact that New York had what's it called like limited gun ownership laws, I guess you can say, because he was basically saying that if because of their gun laws, the assailant could not get like automatic weapons or like
Mm.
or long rifles. And then on the other note, um, Trump has said that he would like to put a stop to what's called the green card lottery, which is how the assailant from Uzbekistan came into the country. So we can kind of talk on that a little
It
bit.
looked like it said supposedly. It didn't look like that had been confirmed by
Okay.
anyone necessarily.
Oh yeah. Okay. So I mean, but it's that thing that's still in there. But he did come from Uzbekistan. I think he came in
Yeah.
2010.
Yeah.
He was in Florida, and then he moved to New Jersey. Um, and supposedly he had been planning it for a decent amount of time. At least this is what he told FBI agents when he was at the hospital.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if they found ISIS related links or
Yes,
it
on
was
his video or on
uh,
his phone.
on his phone. Okay,
Yeah,
and
there were like 90 videos
holy crap,
just
yeah,
on his phone.
and he pretty much, I think they said that he'd followed it pretty much to the T, kind of like the instructions, which is pretty crazy. So I guess we can get into like the domestic stuff and we can kind of go up from there. So I think the one of the interesting things that are come out of this is this green card lottery, and
Hmm.
essentially what it is that basically it's like allocated to certain like regions like Africa. Excuse me, Africa.
Well, there's just a couple of countries that aren't allowed to do it. It's actually worldwide.
Yeah, so it's I think it's China, Canada, England,
Mexico and I think
uh,
that's it. I think just those four.
yeah, and China. Did I say China already?
I think you said China.
Okay. So basically, but I think when they looked at like they showed like I know on the BBC. I'll try to put these articles on the description of the video, but
Mhm.
on the BBC they kind of showed like a graph of where a lot of people come from, and they showed like at least 50% come from Africa, and it's all spread out between Asia, Latin America. I think Latin America is like the lowest, or maybe in Europe, I think. So basically, what it is that it's pretty much for you to get into the program, you have to have graduated high school,
Hmm.
And well, what was the other things? Oh, you cannot be a criminal. And then you pretty much put your application into the pool of applicants, and you get chosen hopefully. And I honestly didn't provide this little small story, so I keep talking about this class, which is I don't know why like all the classes that I took for anthropology, maybe some for history, like has like all like the theories and everything like that's kind of spread out, which is pretty cool. But when I was taking anthropology of migration, um, I'm not sure if we did a reading on it, but it was like connected to this. So we followed it was an like audio like documentary kind of thing where the it was a BBC correspondent who was talking to a man in where was it? I think it was in Kenya. Well, let's look at my globe. Yeah, Kenya, I believe it was. Uh, Kenya? I think it was
uh,
Kenya. It was Kenya or Ethiopia. I think it was Kenya though. If
okay.
I find it, but whatever happened. So basically, it was a BBC correspondent talking to this guy in Kenya or Ethiopia. The guy was from Somalia and he immigrated. I think it was Kenya. He pretty much left Kenya illegally. He left Somalia illegally and he was in Kenya illegally. And so it was at that time where you had a lot of terrorists in Somalia, and what was happening is that you had like a lot of terrorists going into Kenya and actually blowing things up, like suicide bombers and all that stuff. And at the same time, the Kenyan government decided to round up a lot of all these illegal Somalis and you pretty much send them back to Somalia essentially. And so basically, what the article's about is about this guy who actually enters the green card lottery and kind of like the trials and tribulations of it. But like, so just kind of make the story kind of story. So basically, like, uh, the Kenyan government is pretty much just rounding people up randomly, and of course, him and I think his brother are living in Kenya, and they're like hella scared, like they might be sent back to pretty much death. Um, so the guy enters, the green card program, but he has to go through a bunch of things. He even has to go to like the Kenyan like police station, like the central one, like in the capital. And
Hmm.
so that was pretty like, of course, like he's legal and he's going to the place where they're pretty much round like the place where they're sending out people to go round up his people. So there's a bunch of trials and tribulations of that like that. And so he goes in to the U.S. embassy, I believe, and turns his document or whatever. And so he's going through this huge suffering thing in his life, right? And on the off chance he can get in. And so, all these things are going on. He puts his things in. He does his interview, and he doesn't get in because he forgets to write one little small thing in the document,
Hmm.
and like his entire world's just like shattered. Just like he put all the work in, all like the basically facing deportation, and because he missed one little small thing, he didn't get in. It's just because if you listen to the actual audio documentary, it's like, damn, like that just sucks,
Yeah.
like a lot. And but interesting enough, how the story ended was like the BBC correspondent called the actual migration people or in the embassy, and they eventually let the guy in. So that was cool, and it actually had a very happy ending. So there's a couple of things with it. What they want to do is they want to go to more of a point-based system. This is now Trump who wants to go to a more point-based system, and I believe the Republicans in the Senate or in the House, I don't know which, are actually trying to put a law through where it's kind of similar to that. And this point-based system is used in a bunch of other countries. It's used in Canada, it's used in Australia, it's used in the UK. And so the way it works is that like if you are like have a high like a PhD, you get like a higher amount of points. Like if you're like a if you have a certain set of skills, then you also get more points. It's basically like on that point system. Like the more worth you are to the state, the more points you get. The higher more points you
Hmm.
have, the more chances
Interesting.
you're gonna get into the country. And I was kind of looking through it, and they're just kind of like the article I was looking through, kind of like comparing it, like this is how everything works, but they never talked about like is it like good or is it bad. just kind of doing the numbers. I guess it comes from more like a moral standpoint at this point when it comes to these types of things. Um, what's your kind of take on that, Ben? Do you think this what's it called, this lottery thing is something that's positive we should probably keep to allow the guy I was talking about right now in, or should we go to more of a point-based system where it's like we emphasize qualities like that? What would you say on that?
That's honestly kind of a hard thing. I feel like I'd have to do a lot of research to decide which I think is better. But I
Mm-hmm.
mean, on one hand, it's like, okay, sure, you kind of want to have the best possible people to come into the country.
Mm-hmm.
It's always great to steal resources from other countries, and that's basically what happens when you get,
Yeah.
brain drain out of another country.
Yeah.
But at the same time, a lot of people when they're growing up, they don't have the opportunities to get the things that would give them the points. I think that's kind of the point of the lottery system is it's like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you meet the bare minimum, and then we're just gonna leave it up to chance.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like maybe, dang, that's really hard. I'm honestly not sure.
I think
I
that's
almost kind of
yeah.
want a little bit of both,
Yeah.
where it'd be great to be like, okay, we want, you know, uh, some of the best that we can get here,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, we want to give everyone a chance.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's hard.
Um, I know what he's trying to do. I think he's basically what Trump is trying to do. I mean, it's a fair argument to a certain extent, where you know, if you go to a large system, there's more chances you might get bad eggs, in a sense. But I feel like how many times you can get that bad egg, and even then, you even have to do you have to do an interview with a person before you even get to the program. Like they don't just like oh okay, number one is gonna get it, number two is gonna get it. Like you have to be interviewed, and hopefully the interviewee or no person doing the interview is basically saying okay, this person's good to be put in the program to be
hmm
selected, and not many people get selected at all. So I don't know. I feel like if you do it in this way, I feel like you'll be hurting more people than you actually be helping, maybe, because that usually what happens when you do these types of things. But
You
also,
mean the lottery system
the
or
lot,
the?
if you say okay, the large system is bad because it allows more bad people in, I don't really know how to even quantify that information.
Oh yeah, I think that's just a stupid reason.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense because Trump's like saying, well, we want people who are gonna. I think in his speech after in the White House, he basically said, yeah, we want more people who are gonna be good people for our country or something like that, some to that degree. And I don't even know.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily mean. I mean, so it's like, if you're doing the point system, who's going to get in? A
Hmm.
lot of rich people are going to get in because they can just afford the things that'll get them points.
Yes.
And I mean, just because you're educated doesn't mean you're a good person.
Hmm.
It takes a lot of education to make a bomb.
Yeah.
I mean,
Mm,
it's if it's completely random,
mm,
it's I don't know. I
mm.
don't I could see there being an argument against the lottery, but if that's the person's main argument, then that's a terrible argument.
Yeah.
You need to
And
find a better one.
and I don't know how would you. How, I would really like to see like the quantify like how would you even judge like which system was better for like makes a country more economically stronger or anything like that, like off the point system or not. You probably have to like track. You probably have to like. I think the way you would have to do it is probably take the people who've come through the lottery system, maybe choose like 10 or something, and then look at people who've come through like the point based system and just choose it randomly who's chosen or whatever, and then see like what's the changes or not. I would think that would be the only way, but even then, I think that'd be kind of a very monumental task to partake in, don't you think?
Yeah, no, that'd be too hard of a thing to study. Unless you can open up multiple alternate universes and run them through a couple hundred years of each program.
Yeah,
It's like you can't just be like, we're gonna switch to that program for 5 years and see what happens. Like that's just a terrible idea.
yeah,
Um, there's too many other factors. First of all, it'd be impossible to have a good, actual sound experiment. And then I mean, this is definitely one of those things you have to think about on a theoretical level and kind of decide which one you think is best
mhm,
from there.
mhm, yeah. So yeah, I think that's my opinion. A point on it is where I think more people are gonna get left, get the short end of the stick when it comes to these things. Um, if you do that way. But I don't know. It's a pretty decent argument to make. I like to see what kind of goes on there and like. But they're saying that with the law itself, this point-based system is going through the U.S. Congress. They're saying that that's going to be a very upward battle because a lot of Democrats and some Republicans are going to be against this point-based system.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I don't think we're gonna see. It's gonna be a long time from now. We're not gonna see it for a long time. But I would be really interested to see like where it goes, and if you can even quantify that type of experiment. That would be really interesting to see. Um, and then also on the same note, in terms of U.S. politics, U.S. We have the first charges came from the Russia probe investigation by Robert Mueller. We have Paul Manafort, which was the former chair of Trump's campaign, right? And we
Hmm.
had what's his name, Papadopoulos,
Papadopoulos.
Papadopoulos, who I believe he was the former advisor on foreign policy, I believe, right?
Yeah, for a specific country, if I recall, or like a specific region of the world.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Uh,
he was one of the foreign advisors.
Foreign advisors. And so what happened is pretty much Papadopoulos, he was already charged, like in I think like earlier this year, right? He's been under FBI custody for a long time, I believe. Manafort, he was charged with basically not telling the feds that he was working with Ukraine and getting money from them.
Hmm.
That's what he got charged with. So on that front, like that's not really connected to the Trump campaign in any sense, which is true. It's just more like him being an idiot on himself. But the Papadopoulos thing is really interesting because he was connected to the campaign, and he was found, or he testified, not testified. He basically said that he was actually actively working with Russian agents trying to get dirt on Hillary. That's if I'm correct.
Yeah.
And so that makes it a little bit more interesting on the Trump front, where, how deep does this conspiracy go in a sense? Um, that's
Yeah, it
kind.
looks like it kind of goes all the way too. I mean, that's the thing is it's like it it keeps happening where every single person's like, "Oh no, 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 I didn't do anything." And then it's like, "Well, we have very significant proof that you did."
Mhm.
And then there's either the Papadopoulos route of, "Oh, well, yeah, you're right, I did. I'm gonna just go ahead and like give in and get you information on someone higher up,"
Mhm.
or they panic.
So I don't know. It's getting really interesting. It's getting very close. It's really hard to make a judgment. I mean, we've already talked about this a bunch of times. We just have to kind of see where it goes. But right now, it's not looking too good. If it digs deeper and deeper, it gets worse and worse, definitely. So it should be really interesting. I don't know. At this point, I'm finding it like okay, like how. Uh, I'm thinking it might, because we talked about this last time. I think it might go the route of the Iran Contra idea, where it's just like I didn't know that they were doing it thing, which is a valid argument. But I don't know how they would. I don't know if it'll work in the same way because this is a very different climate with a very different president.
Yeah.
Um, Especially one that's not as a good talker as Ronald Reagan. Uh,
Yeah. I mean, Trump, like, there's been multiple articles I've read where it's like, it seems like, or it seems quite apparent that he doesn't think that his things that he said in the past should matter. It's like it's not even like, oh no, I didn't say that. It's, oh, who cares? I said that like a week ago. Why does
yeah,
that matter? It's like,
exactly.
what?
So,
Oh.
so I think that might be the only difference if it comes down to that. Is I think Reagan understood where he was at, and he understood like the way in which he can kind of get out of the situation. I don't think Trump has that type of like way of doing things. But no, it'll be really interesting to see where that goes. So hope. Well, I don't know. Hopefully things go well. I don't know. So that was really interesting on that front. So yeah, I think we should probably switch over to the world news because anything else locally that you would want to bring up that you saw?
Nah.
No. Yeah, go
Not
for
that I
it.
can think of. I don't know. I read so many articles every week. I don't
I think.
really.
Oh, I
I should
think.
start saving them or something.
Yeah, one interesting thing. Well, I don't know if this is still going on, but it was kind of interesting where, it was with the Puerto Rico thing. Pretty
Mhm.
much it was the deal on, I forget, it was like white shockers, white something. It was basically the government had given like a $300 million contract to a newly developed company that only had like 3 people in their company when they started in Montana, I believe. It's like white something. Do you remember the story?
Sorry, can you say that again?
The Puerto Rico, the what was it called? The contract that went to the electrical company.
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Okay.
What was the
Dang
group?
it. No, I don't remember.
It was
Like
like
White
white.
Bear or
I think it was
something.
White Bear. We can put it on later, but I think everyone else kind of knows what we're talking about. The interesting on that note, I think this was a little bit recently. I'm not sure how it's gone along from that, but so pretty much a lot of people were saying like, because I guess Trump knew some of the donors.
Whitefish.
Whitefish. There we go. I guess Trump knew some of the people in that thing, and they're actually donors, the owners of that company. So there's a little bit like, well, did he do it like because they're friends or anything like that? Which is very sketchy, even though like you had three people in there, and of course the Trump government was saying that we had nothing to do with the deal that was put through.
Yeah.
So in response to that, Puerto Rico's governor actually denied, or they didn't deny, but they said we don't want the $300 million put back. We don't want them here essentially. So we're like pushing away $300 million to rebuild our country.
Well, no, I mean it was
But,
we don't want that $300 million going to that company.
um,
It wasn't like, oh, if this company works for you, then you'll get money. It was like, hey, we're giving this company money to come work for you. And
mhm.
they went, no, we want a different company. So the company got a few $1 million, but they're not going to get all of it.
But they're still gonna put like the power back on, right? Turn lights back on, or is it kind of like if it kind of half?
No, they're gonna anything that they've already started,
Mhm.
which isn't a lot, they're gonna
Yeah.
finish,
Yeah.
but they're not gonna finish the entire country.
Okay. So I find that one extremely interesting because you have this. I mean, it's that thing. Do you think at that time? Do you think it's cool to play politics at that point? Because your country's out of power, your people are suffering. I'm not sure if the company was gonna do the job that they were supposed to do because it seemed like they were actually starting to do work.
Okay, so the thing with that is when the company was hired,
Hmm.
they had two full-time employees.
Yes. Yes.
Literally only two people.
Yes.
Then they hired a few hundred more,
Hmm.
and it's like, why were they selected in the first place?
I agree with that point. I totally agree. Like that's kind of sketch, right? But like
Yeah.
it's at the point where like okay, so what if this politicking goes on for a long time, the power doesn't get turned on? You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing of like, you're in a bad
yeah.
position, do you give up or
Hmm.
do you fight for your country? I mean, what exactly do you do?
Yeah. I don't know. I'm what's it called? I don't know if you heard the podcast yesterday. You kind of know where my family kind of stands on those types of things. My father, he's a very like, what's the word I use? Like try to use a positive word if I can. Like he's very realist in terms of
Okay.
like he thinks more of like the bigger picture, I guess, in a sense,
Hmm.
where like it's more about like taking care of yourself before you then go fight for your rights or whatever. So I don't know. It's that a little interesting thing. So I'm really interested to see kind of like where it goes, and like how does that develop. But I found that extremely interesting, like and how that kind of went. So that's kind of the last thing I have on the domestic front.
Yeah.
Um, Anything else interesting? I'm trying to think right now.
Domestic, I could flip through the news real quick.
Uh,
Um, there was another shooting a couple minutes ago.
hmm
Um, oh, this is a few hours ago.
Wait, was it a mass shooting or no?
A couple people died.
Oh, that's. I mean, it still sucks.
It was
Still
in
sucks,
Colorado.
huh?
God, I feel so. Oh man, that about that truck thing. It was a Home Depot truck. It clearly just like rented this Home Depot truck to use.
Yeah, it does suck.
um, nah, I don't really see anything recent.
Yeah, and then on that, I think on that terrorist thing, I'm not sure if you limit. I don't
Oh
think.
well, the JFK files were released recently.
Oh
That
yes.
happened.
Oh yeah, I remember that. From what I got from it was nothing really big came out of it. It was kind of like
Not that I've seen,
yeah, it was
no.
more like okay, we got a little more like interesting items. Wasn't the biggest thing like they kind of knew that um Oswald was kind of a oh no, I think the biggest thing I found was that the idea when they were tracking Oswald when he went to Mexico before he came back, like he was trying to contact the I think the FBI were following him or something like that,
Hmm.
and Oswald was basically trying to talk to the Russian like ambassador or something like that, or in the Kremlin. I don't know which person, but like he was trying to call them, and the Russian guys are like, we don't speak Russian or something like that, and the other
Okay.
and Oswald's like, yes, like I need you guys to speak Russian, or like he was trying to like get a deal with them or something like that, but I guess it wasn't working. Um, so I think what they did say is that he was not a Russian agent or not, but what I remember is like nothing really changed, like nothing groundbreaking.
Okay. Yeah, basically that's kind of what I've seen too. It's just like, yeah, mostly stuff we knew. There are a few more confirmed things of what the CIA was planning. They
Hmm.
were gonna attack Miami, and no, that was one that was already known. Yeah, it was. There's just a lot of. It seemed like it was a lot of small stuff.
I think the another thing that kind of made it like a little bit more like not that big thing was because the a lot of like the FBI and CIA they kind of asked the president to kind of keep things kind of blacked out still, like the more sensitive things. And I think they said they're gonna keep it down for like 6 more months or something like that, 6 to 8 more months,
Um,
I believe.
yeah, it was like so. This has been planned for a long time. Like the Congress decided that they wanted to release the JFK files after 25 years, about 25 years ago. um, but yeah, even then, they a couple months ago they're like, okay, we're gonna start deciding, like what things to redact and all that stuff. And they're like, okay, we want this redacted, and then Trump's like, I don't know. They're like, no, no, really, we want this to be crossed out. He's like, eh. And so there was a lot of fighting where they're like, look, it's gonna happen in a few months. We kind of want it, we're trying to work with you here.
I find it's like I think we already know the government's pretty like the things that our government has done to other people in other countries is shitty. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
It's like
mainly
what?
South America.
Yeah, in South America, exactly. Like especially what's happening. Oh, wait, remember the lecture we had?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. So especially like in Central America, Honduras, and all that stuff. So we already kind of know it's shitty. So like, if you were to show us that something like that is like it wouldn't change our opinions of how shitty things we've done. Even in
Yeah, I
recent,
guess it's kind of. I mean, it was like so there were already we already knew about some of the things. It's basically just like a bunch of false flag stuff that the CIA was planning,
yeah.
and it's like now we know more specifics, or even like a bunch of things that they were gonna try to do to kill Castro,
Mhm.
all that fun stuff. And it's like we kind of already know about all this for a few years or for a number of years now.
Mhm.
So it's like, okay, here's a little bit more, but it's nothing groundbreaking.
Yeah, so that's kind of my thing. Was just like, just release it. It won't change our opinions of our government and how shitty we can be. Even though like we know we can like waterboard and like just terror torture people like without any rights. It's all cool. That was very sarcastic.
Yeah.
Very very sarcastic. So yeah, that's all I have on the domestic front. Let's move to international news. I've been following the Spanish thing for like a long time, and it's getting hilarious and more funny. For me, I mean, if you're in Spain, it's pretty shitty. For me in the United States, it's pretty funny. I don't know why, but I find it funny. So what's happened? So pretty much what's kind of gone on is, I believe right after they kind of the Catalan government, pretty much said we're going to declare independence, but we're not going to say we're going to declare independence. We're not going to put it in law or whatever. So
Yeah.
then the Spanish government's like, okay, like you guys have like 3 days to either say you're gonna do independence or not do independence. If you say you do independence, then you're not going to be autonomous anymore. And then when the days came up, the Spanish government said,
Yeah.
okay, you guys are no longer autonomous. And then the Catalan government said, now we're independent. And then pretty much the Catalan government and the Spanish government invoked Article whatever, I was like 20 something, whatever. Basically said they can start to do local elections for new like representatives. They took over the police force. Um, and then of course each side had their own rallies for what they believed in. And the interesting thing that happened, I believe it was today. This is November 1st. The leader, the former president, Carlos Puigdemont. I don't know. That's probably not Puigdemont. My Spanish. Puigdemont. It sounds French, which seems weird.
I don't
Puigdemont.
think you're supposed to pronounce the G.
Puigdemont. I know, but like the Mont is weird for me. But Carlo, I'm gonna call him Carles. That's a weird name. I'm calling Carls because even though that's not his name, his name is now Carls. Carls.
Charlie.
His name's Charlie now. So good old Charlie, um, he went to Belgium, which is where we believe that's where the EU is. I think.
You mean
Yeah.
like the headquarters of the EU?
He said he went to Belgium. I don't know who he's talking to. He's talking to somebody
Okay.
in Belgium. I think that's where the EU is. Correct me if I'm wrong. But pretty
The
much.
EU is the entirety of Europe for the
No, I'm
most
saying
part.
the like the local the headquarters. I mean.
Okay, that's what I thought you meant. Okay, okay.
Yeah. So he's in Belgium right now, talking about okay, like, can you guys help us out, pretty much. And then
Mm-hmm.
right now, the Spanish government asked him to him. He's there. He's in Belgium with a couple of his former ministers,
Mm-hmm.
and the cats in Spanish government has basically said, okay, we need you to come back to Spain so you can face charges of they face charges including sedition, misuse of public funds. Um, yeah. So basically, the Charlie, he said, well, no, he will not be going. And he says, let me see if I can find the quote. I think. Okay, he says he was there for safety purposes and wanted to be able to speak freely. And I don't think if he goes at this current point. At this current point, he thinks that he will not get like a fair trial and wants like a fair like discussion about things like that. And if there's a chance where the Spanish government can say that they can ask for like his arrest, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much straight up for not coming to court. Um, I just find this extremely funny where it's kind of one of those things like I have this big, huge idea, like, oh my gosh, we're gonna like this. We have this awesome plan, right? And like it's gonna work. It's definitely gonna work. And it's just like the Spanish government's like, what are you doing? Like, what really? You think this is gonna work? It's like we declared him, and it's like no, just like picks him up and like puts him in jail, just like like in timeout, like that, like like that type of that's the image I
Mm-hmm.
have in my head right now. It's just like I don't know why like it's like pretend like Charlie's like a baby, and the Spanish government's like an adult, and like the Charlie throws a fit, and like the Spanish government just picks him up. Like, why are you being like a like what? Just puts him like in timeout. That's the image I get in my head right now. It's just
Yeah, I
so.
don't know. I guess if you wanted the whole story, it'd be like he starts to throw a fit, and then they kick him in the face, and then everyone else goes, and then he starts actually throwing a fit, and everyone's like, maybe he's okay. Maybe it's okay that he's doing that. I'm not. Who do I root for?
And the funniest thing is that he's like a bunch of people thought when he was in Belgium he was seeking to seek asylum, and now I think he might try to seek asylum. I don't know. I just had this thought in my head that he just screwed everybody over pretty much. I would not be surprised if that was the case. But it should be interesting what he does. If he's gonna come to court and face those actions, or he's gonna try to stand in some interesting way. But at this point, it's like it's done, bro. It's not gonna work. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, pretty much, if you go talk to the EU, they said they're not gonna support you guys. They said this is a Spanish like problem, and everyone else
Yeah,
has said this is a Spanish. Even in the United States, has said this is a Spanish problem.
yeah, that's the thing. No one. It doesn't seem like anyone.
Cares
Well, no. I mean, I think a lot of people care, but no one wants them to be independent.
exactly.
It's not economically sound
Mhm.
or really just stable in any way.
Mhm. So I just found that this entire thing just kind of hilarious for myself. And no, it's not hilarious. I just find like on a like if I was
No,
to
not really.
if I was to be like a god and just like don't care about anything, or not, well, never mind. I'll stop that. I'll stop where I'm going with that.
Stop your god complex.
So, I am God. um, and that was the only world thing I have. Um, so on yeah. So what's your opinion on that thing, a jig?
On the entire thing, I mean, I still have the same kind of opinion where it's like, well, Spain fucked up a lot more than they did. They did things very differently than they should have. But in the long run, it's probably better that you know. I was kind of surprised actually. So there was an article that was saying, so the day when they finally like declared independence,
Mm-hmm.
there was like a huge party,
Yeah.
like across all of Catalonia, or well, in Barcelona. Um, And then like a couple days later, there was a giant protest, and it had like a few 100,000 people.
Hmm.
And then there was like there were still polls and things, and even the most recent polls, it was still about 50-50 of people wanting to stay versus wanting to go.
Hmm.
Where that's what it was before, and I thought for sure that after all the violent attacks that people would, more people would want independence, but it didn't actually. It's almost exactly the same as before.
Hmm. That's pretty crazy.
Yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. So I'll be interested to see what goes on and see what happens. Because this is kind of a turning point for Spain, where I think it was since because what was the guy's name? I think it was Franco. Yeah. Like ever since he kind of basically said Spain's now a democracy. They've been autonomous since then, and so this is kind of like the biggest shakeup politically since the dictatorship ended.
Mm.
Um, so it'll be kind of interesting to see kind of what happens, and it's kind of like that. And they might be repeating history a bit in a sense, or maybe not. Not sure. So that'd be interesting to see. And the reason why everyone's like, I bet everyone's like, why does he keep talking about Spain? Like, who cares? Reason because I'm currently doing research on something similar, so that's why. And we'll keep talking about it. So like it or not, just get used to it. And then I guess the last world history news, even though this is something so small, but it is historically, it's connected to history. Um, in Israel right now, they've done, or not Israel, well, it's the 100th,
Somewhere.
yeah, it's the 100th anniversary of the Battle of Berishba. I hope I can pronounce that right.
Uh,
Um, Yeah. So what makes it kind of interesting is that it's so pretty much what they did is that they did a recreation of the actual charge that occurred there, and I can give you guys a little bit of history on it, but I just want to let you guys know what's the event or what happened. So pretty much you had you had Australia, and New Zealand people take part in it, and they're doing a recreation of because the main reason why is because Israel's kind of sees that as a turning point for like their independence. Not their well, they signed the document. I believe it was called. Let's see if I can find the document that got them their independence. The Treaty of something.
Versailles.
Oh, that's kind of close. It's
Right.
see if I can find it really quickly. Oh, hey, hold on. The Balfour. Oh, the Balfour Declaration. There we go.
Mm.
That was one of the main. Well, that was one of the treaties that basically said that we're going to create a Jewish state in Israel and just kick out all the Muslims who were there because they were there for like together. So we'll just kind of so just skip over that part. Um, they've been doing that for the last like I don't know 50 years, 60 years,
Mm.
and so pretty much
Right.
you had about 100. Well, not well, yeah, like 300 years ago. So basically, they did a recreation of the battle, and so again, the Jews in Israel believe that's when they got their independence. Well, the Palestinians believe that's when they regarded it as a betrayal. Like they got betrayed by the Triple Entente, I believe it was called. I think that's what the Allies were called. So kind of a little bit of history on that. I have my book. Where's my book at? I don't have my bookie. I had it. Okay, never mind. I'll try to do it by memory. So pretty much what the battle is about is you had a guy named Sir Arthur. Hold on, let me get my book really quickly. It's too late. Never mind. So so pretty much what happened is that 1917, the British have been in the Middle East since the beginning of the war, and they've not been able to pretty much push the Ottoman Empire out of the area. And so I believe the general who was in charge in 1917 when the battle actually was Sir Arthur Albert or something like that. I can put it in the description who the guy was. So pretty much with the battle, so pretty much the guy did like a bunch of like tactical awesome things with his cavalry. And what made this battle so significant was the fact it was kind of the last like cavalry charge until the introduction of modern weaponry. And so pretty much the guy he did like a bunch of feints that tricked the enemy and allowed him to retake Jerusalem and Damascus. Yeah, from it. And so interesting enough, it kind of was like the writing was on the wall in a sense because it's 1917 and the Americans are now coming into the war, and so pretty much the British had more troops. They had actually better reconnaissance than the Ottomans, and so pretty much victory was gonna occur anyways. But this guy who came into charge, he actually was on the Western Front before, but he screwed up miserably. He was actually one of the guys who led the charge on the Somme, where on the one day, pretty much the British lost as many people as the U.S. lost in the Vietnam War. It was either the
Mm,
first or 2 days, but I believe it was like 50,000 people, something like that, like in 1 or 2 days of combat.
wow.
And so pretty much he got he got kicked out of that job very quickly.
Sure.
Um, and then he was sent to the Palestine, and so pretty
Hmm.
much allowed him. He was not like it was a little bit more like a flowing style of combat. So the tactics that he was kind of taught in were actually could be useful. And when you have the resources to outfight your enemy as well, it makes it easier. Interesting enough, I was reading a book. This is a book I've been reading since summer. I'm halfway through it. I want to get done with it after this quarter's over. It was called Lawrence in Arabia. And so what I like about this book,
Mm.
I don't have the author on me. I forget his name, but the author does a very good job because instead of just looking at Lawrence as this monolithic figure, he actually
Scott Anderson.
thank you, Scott Anderson. Um, what he does is that he pretty much takes Lawrence as a part of this larger cast of characters from both the British side, people, the Muslim rebels he was fighting with, and also the Ottomans as well, and some Germans. And so pretty much what he wanted to show with this is that how this event around Lawrence kind of crafted the Middle East that we know today, specifically like the Sykes-Picot Treaty that kind of split off Iraq, Jordan, and Syria into these different little countries, and just basically said, okay, like we're gonna draw these maps. We don't care who's there. We don't care who we put in power. Is gonna draw these maps, and pretty much a lot of problems that we have today. Um, kind of talk about like they kind of stem from that essentially from that treaty.
Hmm.
So I haven't read it all, but the author does a very good job of putting things together. And so what I kind of get is the fact that like, well, one thing Lawrence was doing a very good job, and he had this interesting with Lawrence is that he was kind of like he actually very was much into like the local religion and the local culture in the area. Because one of the things is that he was very much like a loner type of guy. But he was also a little bit like a what's the word? He's very different from his contemporaries. Like even when he was doing research on medieval castles in during the Crusades, during that time, a lot of times it was when you did history, it was like, okay, this guy wrote this book. I'm gonna now do like a book review of that book and maybe do a couple of different things. So that was like the change. And the other big change is that he actually went to the Middle East, to the area that he was doing research in. And so it was funny enough that he actually walked most of it. And it was funny because like there's this is kind of going a little bit longer. I just want to make my point here, but
Hmm.
like a funny story for that was like they're gonna tell you the kind of guy he was. Like he was walking pretty much, and what happened is that like a local noble kind of saw him walking. This British guy like he wants to meet him, so he kind of like he invites him to dinner. They have a good fun chat, and so pretty much he escorts him with a bunch of cavalrymen to his next location, and so the cavalryman offers Lawrence a horse, and Lawrence is like, "I'm cool, guys. I can walk." And the cavalry guy's like, "What does he have against horses?" So and like even when he was working on his archaeological digs, he even like would go to like the workers' homes, the local people's homes. He would actually know their names, know like the language, know the culture. So he's very much like he actually loved the local population or whatever. And so he actually used a lot of those things, and plus his like disdain for military hierarchy. He was actually not in the military. Another quick funny story on that was that he was actually a civilian contractor working in the British the war, pretty much like the war officer command or whatever, pretty much general staff. And the generals there don't like the fact they're being reported to by a civilian in civilian clothes. So one of the generals said, "Okay, go get some officer uniforms, and I'll make you like a first lieutenant." And that's how he became an officer. And so Lawrence used a lot of those tasks to kind of to help make his rebellion a lot better, to actually drain a lot of the Ottomans' resources. To the fact that they had to keep repairing railroads, the fact that their patrols kept getting shot at, and so that's another reason that kind of helped the thing as well. So I kind of find it funny, or not funny, but interesting that like the Israelis kind of point this thing as like this one, like okay, this got this independence or whatever, but like it's kind of put them in that same predicament where they're now, they're kind of surrounded by people who don't really like them,
Hmm.
and also kind of like it's kind of like the people who wanted their independence, who wanted those things, didn't get that independence and gave the Jewish people their independence. So it's kind of like that weird little switcheroo where it's just like we kind of helped you guys get your independence. So why did you guys screw us over in the end? Kind of. Um, so no, I
Hmm.
wanted this is History Made Awesome podcast. So I wanted to do a little bit of history in it for the podcast. So yeah, so that was kind of interesting on that note. Any
Hmm.
thoughts on that my story or anything like that, or what's kind of going on there for yourself?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah, I don't really know a lot about it, honestly. Yeah, I'm not a history person, so it's hard for me to
Is it,
contribute to that necessarily. We talk about genetics, I could talk for a few hours though.
yeah, but it's a very interesting story though, like how like you can kind of view history and how like things you can kind of track where things went wrong, and hopefully you can maybe
Yeah.
use that information to probably change how we do things in the future. So it's funny when you if you look at that article, you kind of like okay, that's cool. It's a battle that I guess got them independence, I guess. But when you look at it like, well, it's a little bit more complicated than that. It's like a lot of things took place from the in the for them to get their independence, and you kind of see like there's the local people there who were there for the Jews, like they're still getting screwed
Hmm.
over, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It was kind of interesting for me. I want to imbue some history. So last thing, we're gonna go into your territory, Ben.
Oh,
Science.
okay.
Um.
The sleeping thing.
So right now, I have some of my own opinions on this. So I want to get your thoughts on this. So currently right now, I knew another article on sleep, and so pretty much what this study did was that, or it was a study basically look at how sleep affect your mood essentially.
Hmm.
And so pretty much, I don't know how they did the actual experiment, but what the results was basically that if you get like very less sleep, you get sleep deprived, your mood gets very bad. You start getting more
Hmm.
angry. Your brain starts having problems. And I don't know what they were saying, but they said like this could happen, but doesn't happen in everybody. I believe that's what they said, right? I'm trying to.
Um, yeah, I mean, they did a pretty small study this time around. There's been a lot of studies on sleep though, and they generally have a similar outcome where it's like, yep, if you don't sleep consistently, bad things start to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you're like, say you're prone to depression.
Yeah.
If you have inconsistent sleep, you're much more likely to get depression.
Mm-hmm.
And this is to the point that there are certain studies I've seen where it's like, hey, we're recruiting for whatever, but if you have a history of depression, you're not allowed to take part in this study because your sleep is going to be inconsistent.
Here's my note, but like when people say how much sleep you should get, there's not like a real consensus on it. Would you say? Or they say like
Um,
8 hours is like perfect. Like you should get 8 hours of
n-
sleep.
the general consensus is when you're um, a baby, you need a lot of sleep,
Yeah,
like 16 or 18 hours.
a lot of
When you're a
naps.
child, you need 12 to 14 hours. When you're in your teenager or late teens, you need around 10. Once you hit 20, once you're in adulthood, you need around 8.
Mm-hmm.
When you get really old, you start needing less, actually.
Because you're not really doing much, right? Eh,
It's I don't think if we really I don't know what the actual answer is. I don't think we 100% know. We're still kind of trying to figure out what exactly sleep is for. It's like, okay, we know what happens during sleep, but is it necessarily the reason? We're not sure.
Supposedly, in this article, it says that a few nights of bad sleep can really mess with our blood sugar control, encourage us to
Mm,
overheat, and even messes with our DNA.
yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, like I said, we've studied a lot. We've done a lot of studies where it's like, okay, we found another negative effect, but we're still not 100% sure why it's happening necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's interesting.
Yeah, I find I don't know with that thing. It's like for myself. This is myself, guys. Like this is how I do things. But like I usually right now, so in school, I probably get like I get like 5 hours and like 30 minutes of sleep, so about almost like 6 hours of sleep a night.
Mhm.
And then I pretty much make up my sleep on Saturday, so I get like maybe 8 to 9 hours of sleep.
Yeah.
And then on Sundays it depends. If I have to do things, I'll get like 7 hours or maybe 6 hours of sleep.
Mhm.
So that's kind of with me. And right now, like I am okay. And according to this study, because I guess they had one guy who was kind of like me, like I'm okay, and they found like okay, well actually no, you're a little bit more sadder than you than you were
Yeah.
before. But it's just like I what like isn't that I don't know. I find that how would you even judge that? Like if you're okay, are you actually
Um,
okay? I don't know.
there's a lot of different metrics. I mean, that's the thing is if you're trying to do a study, one of the first things you need to do is, okay, what am I measuring? And if you're measuring self-reported stuff, so like if someone made a study and they're just like, Eric, how do you feel today? You're like, yeah, I feel pretty good. They're like, okay, we're gonna make you cut down by 1 hour of sleep, and they keep, and then they ask you, they're like, how do you feel? You're like, yeah, I'm still okay. That doesn't mean anything. That's a
Yeah.
terrible metric. You're just like, yeah, I'm fine. It's like, okay, gee, thanks. Yeah, we'll write that down. um, but so some of the more specific studies, this one doesn't seem to have done that. The more I look at it, actually, it's like they had like four. This one looks okay. Actually, it looks kind of bad. There's a lot of better sleep studies out there. They'll measure your chemical levels. They'll do like fMRIs, to look at, okay, like what chemicals in your brain, how are you doing? Like, do you have higher levels of stress hormones? Do you have higher levels of, or do you have lower levels of this one? They look for actual measurable things. um, and even then, it's not flawless. But there's a lot of them, and since they all kind of have a general similar consensus of, yeah, if you don't sleep as much, your mental state kind of deteriorates. When
Mhm.
there's a big consensus like that, you kind of have to believe it to some extent.
Yeah. I from right now, like I don't know what your sleep like my sleep pattern is like. I'm okay. I've kind of come up with this. I don't know if this is a positive, like not. I mean, positive in terms of like bodily functions, I guess, or health wise.
Hmm.
I kind of like I'm gonna do what I gotta do. Don't complain, just get it done, type of thing. Like if I have to get 6 hours of sleep, I'm gonna get 6 hours of sleep per night. Like whatever to do to complete my tasks. And
Hmm.
I don't know. And even though in the end of the article it says well, I guess Norbert Schwartz, who is a psychology University of Southern California, has put a bigger figure on it,
Hmm.
and he claims making $60,000 more in annual income has less of an effect on your daily happiness than getting 1 extra hour of sleep a night. So sleep well. Is he basically saying that sleeping more is better than making more money? Is that the claim he's making?
Yeah, that's a really vague claim. There are studies where it's like once you make around seven, like happiness goes up with income until you hit around $75,000, and then increase in happiness is almost completely negligible.
Yeah.
Like on average,
Hmm.
if you spend it in a certain ways, your happiness can keep going up. But on average, so saying 60,000 more, I mean, like let's say you make $10 a year, making $60,000 a year is going to make you significantly more happy and less stressed
Yeah.
than getting 1 hour of sleep. But if you're making $100,000 a year, surprisingly, nearly doubling your income actually doesn't have that much of an impact.
Hmm.
Um, Kind of like contradictory to what you might, imagine.
So making more money
um,
makes you less happy? Is that what you just said? Or it
no,
depends?
I'm saying it. It's there's something called diminishing returns.
Uh huh.
It's the concept of, so let's say you make $10,000 a year.
Yes.
You're gonna be super stressed out. You're not gonna be able to afford anything. You're probably not gonna have a house.
Yes.
um, so okay, if you're making $20,000 a year from that 10,000, you're gonna be much happier, much less stressed.
Yes.
If you ramp that up to a 70,000,
Hmm.
you're gonna be much, much happier.
Yes.
You'll easily be able to live, and you'll have enough to save and do extra stuff.
Hmm.
But when you get it up to 80, it's like you're a little bit happier, and then you go to 90, 100, it's almost exactly the
Oh,
same.
it's like there's no kind of point because you kind of like have enough to live on essentially.
Yeah, it's like there's this point where more money stops doing anything for your happiness levels,
I got you.
and it's generally quoted at being around $75,000 a year. Um, where it's like you'll be about the same amount of happiness with that as you would be with a few $100,000 a year.
Hmm. But then again, that all depends on the person and the situation they're in and the family they have to take
Yeah,
care of.
but it's pretty consistent on that though. Actually, it's kind of surprising.
Hmm.
And then that's I think so. That's why I'm like his claim is kind of vague.
Yeah.
But definitely, seriously, 1 hour a night actually makes a huge
Yeah,
difference.
I feel it. I feel it definitely. I feel it bigly. um, yeah, like that's my kind of sleeping pattern. Like, of course, you're trying to get that 7 to 8 hours of sleep, but like, it's kind of like when you're in that modern world, like you don't get that chance to sleep as much as you want to. And I
Hmm.
feel like, and I think that's when it comes to like prioritizing like your sleep over anything else. And what I mean by that is like, you know how
Hmm.
most people like go and watch Netflix and then they fall asleep. Like that's a
Yeah,
pretty shitty way to go to sleep. Like, because now you're cutting into the sleep you can actually use to make it more beneficial for yourself.
yeah.
And the funny thing that I found is that when you actively like put like a lot of work into the day, like you pretty much work from sun up to sundown. Like by the end of
Hmm.
the day, you're dead tired. You're gonna fall asleep like in 2 minutes. That's like for me, that's how. Like I never have problems falling asleep anymore because I'm so tired when I end the day. That's just my point of view. Like when like I feel like people kind of do that thing where like I don't get that much sleep, but like what are you doing that's like hindering your sleep ability, right? Like I
Hmm.
think people have opportunities to go to sleep earlier, but they decide to stay up and watch Netflix or something like that, right? And I think that if you just kind of do it that way, like you're gonna be able to complete a lot of things you want to complete, um, and you're gonna
Hmm.
get your sleep. You're gonna get as much sleep as you can get with the amount of stuff you have to do. And I think that just comes down to like prioritizing your sleep over. And I've kind of like I even for myself like I kind of experienced that like last week. Like
Hmm.
I think it was on Tuesday. Like I was kind of lazy. I was like, I'm just gonna like maybe watch a YouTube video or just play some video games or something like that.
Hmm.
And so and I also had to do stuff like for the YouTube channel. I also had to do stuff for homework as well. And I did not end up sleeping until maybe 1:30, maybe like 1:20
Hmm.
after doing those things. And then I woke up like at 6, so I only got like 4 hours of sleep, and I was just terrible. It felt terrible at the end of the day, like absolutely terrible. And I had to do stuff the next
Yeah.
day too. And I think that's when it comes down to choices that you kind of make. We were kind of talking about this on the last podcast with my dad. It's about the choices you make and the things you have to prioritize. Like
Yeah.
sleep is definitely gonna like it's gonna like and I think I agree with you on this point where like sleep does definitely help you with if you have enough sleep it helps you with your memory, helps you with like understanding things and like being on things, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like there's definite studies that show that if you have sleep, you're gonna have all those benefits. And so I think it's about again we come back to these things about choices, right? Like you, it's good to get sleep. It's definitely really good to get sleep. You just have to prioritize your sleep when you can. You know, you get all your stuff done. Maybe take a 1 or 2 breaks, and then you fall straight to sleep. I think sleeping is your break, like the ultimate break, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. I mean, so when it comes to prioritizing, I think part of the point of the study is to show like, hey, maybe sleep might need to be a higher priority than you think
yeah.
for certain people. Because I mean, I had a friend who at one point in time he was getting 4 hours of sleep
Ooh,
every single night, and I'm like,
ooh,
dude,
you're gonna
dude,
die. Ooh,
no, you need to
ooh,
not do this.
ooh.
He was like, I'm fine, I can handle it. And it's like,
No, I don't know about that one, but yeah, I think, and
yeah.
I think what the study does show, which is kind of positive, is that like when I was talking about the thing of like prioritizing, like you might think that playing video games will make you happy. Yeah, it'll make you like the instant gratification, but like it'll screw you up in the end. Like
Hmm.
if you sleep, not only will your body be like functioning well, but you'll also be a lot more happier since you got more sleep. I think that's what a positive thing about this study does. Which is I
Hmm.
in my head it's like, okay, that makes sense, you know what I'm saying? Like you have your sleep, you're happy, you're ready to face the day, and like you feel negative because like you don't have the sleep and you're groggy and you're trying to like do things but your body's not reacting to what you want it to do. And so you kind of get like this sucks kind of feeling. You know what I'm saying? So
Hmm.
I think that's the positive thing. You know, the physical and negative effects. Yeah, maybe it depends. The right amount of sleep, it's not really known, but like the more sleep you get, you're gonna feel a lot better the day. So I agree with you on that point. Where I think the study was meant to show that sleep again get a higher priority because it's gonna do really good things for you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um. That's all I have for the news. Anything you've figured out or anything like that?
No, not in particular. Like I said, there's just so many things, so many articles, so little time.
You had to bring those up, bro. We had to bring those up to the next podcast.
Oh
Get more.
man, there's just so many.
And it's called 24-hour news. The 24-hour news cycle. It's just like it's crazy.
Yeah, it is kind of insane. Um,
Um, I guess
yeah.
actually there's one little quick thing. Uh, I don't know if I want to talk about. I said I was going to talk about a little bit on the podcast. I mean, on the
Okay.
I said this in the vlog, so I guess I'll kind of talk a bit about it. So I think like if you're like a senior, I mean, everyone has to make these choices, kind of like what you want to do. Um, and so for myself, I've kind of been planning out like what I want to do, and it was kind of interesting, kind of going, because I'm in the murals program right now, and like for one of the assignments, I have to kind of like one of the assignments I had to do last week is like look for 6 schools. Like, why do you want to do the program? Why would it be, why would it help you? Um, and like, what would be the challenges you see in trying to do that program? And so it was kind of hard for me to like kind of choose a program because right now I'm kind of like in super school mode, and
Mm.
um, and plus I'm not going to apply for like another year, so I'm like not really. I have time to think, so it's kind of difficult. And so I was kind of I went to my professor and like asked him like he kind of knows like kinda what I do and like things of that nature and kind of what I like. And so we kind of talked about it, and like the thing I kind of got from it was like I'm trying to do this one that's not super super personal, but
Mhm.
like the things I got from it was like when you're choosing like what you want to do, like well, one of the things is like, can you get a job in that sector? And so for me, like, I
Mm.
really enjoy like military history, right? And
Okay.
so what he was talking about was like, well, already trying to be a military history professor, it's already extremely difficult because they only give like 1 or 2 jobs out in the world. He was not what's it called? He literally meant the world. I, very little people get into that job, and so for himself, he was because he's a more of like a military history guy. Um, like for him, like when he went to go a bunch of these universities, supposedly to him, he felt that like, a lot of people who got the military history job or whatever in a department, a lot of
Mhm.
them had former military experience, and they were like another one was like they're more conservative. Um, and he said I guess a lot of programs didn't like the fact that like this guy who was from Berkeley who's speaking all those liberal like gibberish about military history was not really cool for them. So there was that instance, and so that's one thing I think about is like, can you get a job in that department? And plus, or even a professor in like university or community college, like there's 200 people applying for like 1 to 2 jobs. You know what I'm saying? I
Yeah.
think it's extremely difficult to get a job in that way. So we kind of talked about it, and so I could either the biggest thing he said like, do military history degree, get a master's in that, and maybe work for like the government, like either on the security side or like on like a foreign like a diplomat. And so that's kind of like what he kind of told me. And then on this note, my father, of course, if you guys heard the podcast, we're very much a military family, in a sense. Um, so my brother right now he's going down that route in a sense. So my dad's like maybe you should join the military. And at this point in my life, I'm really like, I don't know. I'm not really into that idea right now. I have a bunch of my own ideas of why. But I think that's a really good idea, a way to do it, because you're gonna have that experience, and you're gonna have some things in military can teach you that you're not gonna get in your everyday
Mhm.
life. But I definitely have time to make these changes if I want to do one way or the other. So, but I think that's when I kind of got from it is like, what do you really really like to do, and can you get a job in that way? And so that's kind of like the route I'm in. Is like that's kind of the thing I was thinking about on Tuesday. Like, what am I gonna do for in the future, and like how to do it. So that was kind of really interesting to kind of get that information from our professor. So that was really really cool. So I said I was gonna talk about this on the vlog, so I've talked about it now. Um, yeah, so no, that was really good to get the information from him. So I got a new little route to think of, which is really cool. Because before I'm like, I don't really know what I want to do. Like I like doing this, but I don't know if that's a way to do it or what I can do with it. type of thing.
Yeah.
And like I don't know how. Like I was looking at a bunch of these professors. Like okay, funny enough because I still want to do like Spain. I still want to do Peninsular War. I still want to do Napoleon. And so a bunch of these things my professor said, this be a way to do it. This be a way to do it. So hopefully I find a way to do it. And the biggest thing he said for me, like I gotta get my French down and my Spanish even better, so I can have that in my back pocket when I do apply in a year or two. So that's something I'm definitely doing right now. Right now I'm doing Duolingo for Spanish, and I feel I'm actually getting better at Spanish though. I'm almost at 50% fluency according to the Duolingo thing. So that's actually helping with my language. So I'll probably use that for. Supposedly, I guess it's really good because you actually get like certified for it. Like you actually can get like,
Oh,
yeah, that's what my dad said. Like you can like you something print out that says like, oh, like this person actually knows Spanish. Like if you go to apply for a job and do you need to know
you
that
know
you can.
Spanish, but you can't pronounce the president's name of Catalonia.
I'm not good with
Come
names.
on,
I'm not good at
you've been
names. I'm
practicing.
not good with names in English. To be fair, like I remember I used to referee soccer games, and like I would just
Uh,
butcher every little kid's name because you have to like read off their name to make sure that kid is
oh God.
actually, like I was just
Uh,
I never.
You need to take like just take a year off after you finish your degree and just take etymology classes. Learn how to speak in these ancient things
The
and
ancient
the
one.
contemporary ones as well.
But to be fair though, like if I was to choose a job, either because when you referee it, they like check the kids in. There was two jobs as a referee. You either check the equipment, you call the players' names, or you write down their number. I don't know. I was shitty at both of those things. I think I could read names better than I can write like numbers on the sheet. Because I'd be like, they would say like, okay, like it's Bobby Jones or whatever, and like I have to like
Hmm.
look for the number. I have to look for Jones and I have to write the number because sometimes they don't put the numbers in. Which
Bobby Jones. Is
yeah,
Bobby Jones here?
that I was like, oh goodness, good times, good times. And then
Uh,
getting yelled at by parents was super fun.
I bet.
Oh
Oh
yes.
man, I have one professor right now who cannot pronounce people's names and is just like, I'm sorry, I'm not gonna be able to pronounce this. And most professors say that, or like just people in general. Most people say that. They're like, I'm sorry, I'm bad at pronouncing names. She is the worst at pronouncing
Like,
names.
give us an example.
Oh God, let me think. Um, I don't know if I can think of one. I don't know. It's mostly Asian names. There's a pretty large Asian population just at universities in general, but
Yeah.
especially in California. And just every single one. Geez, if I knew anyone's name in the class, I could probably give a good example, but I don't.
Like what does she do? Like,
Oh
if it's
man, let's
like,
say if it's like let's say if it was you, like YIU, she'd be like yeah, like something like that.
it's
Like it's that bad, like where it's like you just know.
shake your head and put your heads in your hand and
Yeah.
shake your
Or
head.
like the last name Win, like Nguyen.
Like the
I
wind.
just like I yeah,
Okay.
it's called pronounced Win. I'm just like shudder to think how she would try to pronounce that. It's like
Wine.
Niggy Ewan.
Brilliant.
Like
Yeah.
no. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. So, yeah. So everything's been going well. I got that information, which was awesome. So, a little bit more knowledge in the world. Oh, one quick thing. This is really quick. Okay. Um, so when people research things and you know like it's like okay, there's some of those that are good and some of those that are bad. Like I just shudder at some of the things because I had to do this like 1 hour. I had to go to a theme park for my program and do like a luncheon, and so like some people were like researching some awesome things, and so this one person was researching like film or something like this, and so the person was looking at it and she's like, yeah, I want to know like I want to do like a documentary film and like I want to know like by doing this research I want to like change like the Nigerian like this the film industry in Nigeria. And I was like,
Okay.
who cares? I don't. It's just like what? Hopefully this person doesn't listen to this podcast.
Oh,
I w-
edit that part out.
yeah, I don't care. I
Yeah.
don't I don't give a shit. It's just like It's like I hope it changes the world. I hope. I hope you're not wasting your life.
Yeah, some people have interesting goals. Like I'm glad there are so many diverse goals,
Yes.
like for multiple reasons. First of all, it's nice to have less competition
Yes.
going for a specific goal, but also, there used to be someone out there who wants to do that thing that'll help people that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
Like, I think we talked about it before where I'm like, I hate programming. I cannot stand it. I've tried multiple times. I've tried to learn multiple different languages,
Mhm.
and every single one bores me to tears. It is like just awful.
Mhm.
But, there's a lot of people out there who absolutely love programming, and I'm glad they do because things are a lot better thanks to them.
Mhm. Yeah. So no, hopefully I'm hoping that what she's doing, like literally, hopefully she, like, in my own mind, I'm very much like I like it's fine. I think everyone thinks about it as, like, their own, so like everything else everyone else is doing is dumb, and what I'm doing is smart. You know what I'm saying? I
Ah,
might be projecting that a bit.
I think you're projecting that quite a
I'm
bit.
projecting that a lot, actually. I'm a selfish bastard. I know I am. Um,
That's okay.
but hope, and I'm just joking around. But hopefully what she's doing does change the world we live in, and I think every little bit of knowledge hopefully changes the world. Um, and hopefully we don't, like, no one, we just do all this work and like everyone forgets that we put all the work in. What I think that's a part of the thing when you're someone who's an academic, where you do all this work, you write an awesome book, but like no one reads it.
Hmm.
So like, I don't know. I feel like you just be an awesome person. Hopefully you produce a thing in an interesting light. And hopefully it makes it, maybe it might not make the, like I said in the podcast, like whatever you do might not make like the direct change, but you might influence the person who's going to change it. I think
Hmm.
that's a quote from somebody. I don't, I was it. There's an actual quote. I forget the person is, but I got it from Logic, who's a rapper, who got it from somebody else. I'll have to find that quote, but
Okay.
Um, but yeah, I know it's a very well known quote. I actually really do believe in that. So I don't know, for myself, like, I don't know if my thing's gonna ever change the world or whatever I do, but hopefully I influence the person who's gonna make the change. That's my thing.
Mm, gotcha.
So
Yeah, it's kind of funny. There's this show. It's a comedy on Netflix. It's called, I think, The Happy Place. The premise is just like these people die and they're in heaven, basically, but it's like super selective. Um, anyway, one of the characters is like he's a philosophy professor for his entire life, and he like his greatest thing that he did in his life is he wrote this giant book, and it's like the person who's in charge of the city, this section of heaven, basically, is like, yeah, I tried to read that. Like he's like, I literally know everything, and it took me several days to try to get through the first chapter. He's
hmm
like, it's too dense, it's terrible. You need to work on, you need to fix it.
yeah.
Or he's like, no, not even that. He says you should never work on it again. It's so terrible. And the guy's
Brilliant.
like, but it's the thing that I worked on for my entire life. He's like, yeah, no, it's terrible. You need to find a new hobby.
Oh, speaking of that, this is the last thing I'm gonna say, but
Hmm.
I have somebody I know in the library, and he was telling me about a bunch of stories of like people who've come to the library and to put their dissertations in. And so I guess this one guy, he um he wrote his dissertation, right, but like it was like weird. Like he had it like he gave it to like librarians there, and like the guy had like it was like it looked like like an elementary school person had done it. Like there was like things glued in, like things were like coming
Oh,
out. It's just
okay.
like what the heck. And I guess it sucks because like you put all that work in and then like it's shitty. Like everyone else thinks it's shitty. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be like negative on that person. Like I was just kind of joking around, so don't take it seriously. If you a person who I don't know your name, but you probably, I don't know, whatever. Probably not gonna see this podcast. But no, hopefully we're all changing the world in a positive way. It's better than like doing drugs and like messing people's lives up. So I guess we're all doing okay. Went dark there. Went dark there for a little bit. Uh, Yeah, that's kind of all I got. Ben, is that what you got? Anything else you want to say? Closing comments? Questions from the
uh,
last
uh,
podcast that were raised, if you finished it or not?
no, I think I'm okay.
Okay. Sweet. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this podcast. You guys enjoyed our ramblings. I feel like we're getting better and better at this as we do this, so it's pretty awesome. I'm gonna try. I usually say these promises and they usually don't work out. So I'm gonna try to get another friend on the podcast to do more stuff with me and Ben, and get a different opinion in these conversations. Try be the key word. Is it gonna work?
Oh,
I'm not. I don't know. Usually when you say you try, I'll try. It usually doesn't work. I'm gonna try, and
okay.
hopefully it works. So if you guys enjoyed it, and that's pretty much it from us. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.
Now I know achieve the goal. I ran the race I won. I used to wonder